Testing, testing, testing. All right, it's a lovely evening here. It's December 22nd, my oldest boy's birthday. A beautiful night here. It's about 72, low 20s centigrade. It's like an Irish summer tonight here in the Beacon Hill neighbourhood, which we are 10 minutes just northwest of a drive northwest at the Alamo. But absolutely gorgeous, which is nice because in summer it's brutal, as they say in Ringsend. Speaking of which, next chapter, Jimmy Tarbucks. Peter arrived in the shopping centre around 11 a.m. Jackie had texted him that her and Joe were running late. Peter decided to walk around. He had fond memories of walking into some of the shops when he was 16 with John Boy. He didn't have much time for clothes shopping nowadays. Jackie was his clothing consultant now since Michelle was gone. His main purpose now in walking around the Ilex Centre was nostalgia. It was 1986 again, and Peter could see him and John Boy, 16 years old, walking out of the shop with their Miami Vice gear on. "We can't fucking wear the clothes walking out of here," John Boy said Peter. "Of course we can't, Pete. We pay for them. But we have to get on the bus looking like this. Fuck 'em, let's do it." And they did. They got on the number 3 bus in their green and pink suits. They walked into Lansdowne Rugby Club later that night. Peter still remembered the song that was playing inside, OMD, Forever Live and Die. A terrible song to dance to, but a cracker nonetheless. They walked into the fierce slagging from Tim Rossiter. Fucking Crockett and Tubbs, would you look at them? Peter had ignored Rossiter at the time, but John Boy wasn't about to let it go. Especially since Audrey, the girl John Boy had his eye on, was present when Rossiter said it. "Who are you fucking dressed as, Rossiter? Fucking Oliver Hardy." Rossiter was not impressed, but Audrey appeared to smile so John Boy and Peter proceeded into the dance. "Hey," said Jackie, pulling him out of his trance. "Oh yeah, hey, why are you staring at the shop?" Just remembering, that's all." "You're one for the memories, Dad." "Hi, Joe." "All right, Peter." Peter always felt that Joe moved into the Peter phase too soon. He felt that Mr. Casey would have been proper, and after a year or so, perhaps Joe could graduate to Peter, but Joe had moved to Peter within a week of taking Jackie out. Peter had dated Siobhan Ryan when he was 15, and her dad was Mr. Ryan then, and even now to the present day. When he'd see the old man, perhaps he was too old-fashioned. Perhaps he was just looking for reasons not to give up his daughter. "What's new, Joe?" "Not much, Peter. Well, listen, I need to get a new pair of shoes, but I heard you two are wanting to go for a Jimmy. And I don't mean a Jimmy Riddle." Joe waited for Peter's response. Peter was like ice. "Jimmy, Pete, yeah. Jimmy Tarbucks. I like what I'm hearing, Pete." "So I'm fucking Pete now, Joe," Peter thought to himself. Yeah, right, Joe. Good man." Later, Peter caught the look on his daughter's eye and suddenly adjusted his demeanour. "Oh yeah, Joe. Yeah, you like Jimmy Tarbucks." "I don't like it, Pete, but I like the slang word for it. Good on you, Peter. It'll take. All right, I'll leave you, father and daughter, to have some quality time together, and I'll catch yous in a bit." Joe walked away and Peter and Jackie walked towards Starbucks. "Dad, you can't go around making up your own Cockney slang." "Sure I can. Watch it catch, love." "What's up with you today? What do you mean?" "Why did you give Joe a look when he said Jimmy Tarbucks?" "I didn't. I thought you'd be happy that someone liked your stupid made-up slang." "I was happy, Jackie." They arrived at Starbucks and placed an order. "So you knocked off a few lads trying to steal some money." "I didn't know that." "Why did you run in there so fast? No shots had been fired." "Listen, the cops were already outside forming a perimeter. I asked 13 if shots were fired. He said no. Fair enough. But the fuckers closed the blinds. Had they just left the blinds open? But they had to close the blinds, Dad. They didn't want their identity shown and probably didn't want a sniper taking them out." "That's exactly the problem, Jackie," Peter interrupted. "Had they left the fucking blinds open, they may be alive." "I say may. What do you mean?" "If 13 had seen them, he'd have run the background check and known they were small-time criminals. Would that have changed your decision?" "Probably. Maybe I would have sent him in there to beat the shite out of them. I don't know, Jackie. It's easy to look back now and dissect the whole thing. 13 saw the guns right away and killed him. Even if he did know they were not high risk, in the time he'd take to restrain them, they could have shot people in the restaurant. They weren't real guns, Dad. We know that now, Sherlock, but we didn't know that at the time. The stupid fucks had metal guns, so to 13 they were real, I suppose. Listen, Jackie, I feel bad that these gobshites are dead. But look at it from my perspective. Do you remember Columbine? Of course I do. The cops thought those two fuckers were holding up the school, so they stalled going in. Had they burst into that school and shot those fuckers, it'd be a different ending. But those fuckers massacred those kids. That's the way the world has turned, Jackie. Same with Bataclan. Here's how I see it. If you were a dumb enough fuck to hold a place with a gun nowadays, you have to realise you may get killed. We have technology, we can assess a situation fast and take out the enemy. I used that technology. Yeah, I didn't have all the information, but those fellas chose to hold up that restaurant, and this is what happens. If those Egypts didn't have guns, they'd be alive. The boxes were red around their heads because 13 saw guns. If they were unarmed, they'd be green boxes. We all know that now. I had 13 pull the trigger based on all the data before me. You're back fast, Jackie said to Joe. They didn't have the ones I wanted. Let's drink these up and head to Grafton Street, said Jackie. Why didn't we take the shortcut across the bridge? Why don't we take the shortcut across the bridge, asked Jackie. I'm used to this way. I like to walk through O'Connell. Why? History, my dear, history. You see the hole in the angel's elbow and that one's tit, Joe. 1916 Rising, the father and daughter said at the same time. You know you say that every time we walk by, said Jackie. Repetition is the mother of invention. I don't think that's the saying, Dad, but if you say so. They walked across the bridge, past Trinity and down Grafton Street. Peter noticed the crowds and the buskers playing outside the shops. Sunday used to be a dead day in town, but over the years got busier. Shops that once took a day off now opened their doors to restless Dubliners. He remembered Sunday afternoons of years past, playing on the streets of Ringsend, while the world stopped for a day. They stood to observe one performer who was quite good, a young man in his late teens playing a guitar and singing, his guitar case open to bouncing coins. They crossed over into Stephen's Green and sat on a bench. Peter noticed a young couple on a blanket with their daughter who must have been 3 years old. Michelle was now beside him on a blanket. Homemade sandwiches sat near the edges of the blanket. Peter picked up the sandwiches and brushed the sand off of the cellophane wrapping. Jackie was off in the distance digging out a hole in the sand and dropping it into her bucket. Wish I could bring you to Spain, Peter said. This is fine, Peter. I'm happy to be home. I'd rather look at palm trees than those two fucking chimneys. I'd rather look at the chimneys, said Michelle. I'll save up money, Shell, and I'll bring us on a nice holiday one day. It'll take me a long time, but I'll do it. Don't worry about it, Pete. I'm fine. The sun was on her face at the time, the twin chimneys behind her. He could still see it in his head all these years later, the sun lighting up her green and yellow right eye as she looked at him and smiled. Now he looked into his daughter's eyes on the bench beside him, so like her mother. Are you all right, Dad? Oh yeah, just drifting off a bit, thanks. Yeah, just thinking, you know. Well, I love you and leave you. Off so early, said Joe. I might take a nap, said Peter. Peter left them and walked down Bagot Street. He decided to check in on 13 to see what was going on in Paris on a Sunday afternoon. 13 was walking down an urban street when Peter checked in on him. He had Bagot Street in his main view and a small window of Paris to the top left. He was more interested in Paris, so he made the big screen enough to see, but not so big that he'd trip on the Bagot Street footpath. As 13 passed by a couple going into a cafe, Peter noticed the woman had a dark shadow around her eye. As he looked closer, it appeared to be a black eye. He walked past them and then looked back. The man looked at 13 with suspicion, so 13 moved on. Who's that guy? Asked Peter, knowing that 13 already scanned him, as he had noticed the quick appearance of green squares around the couple's head upon passing them. A non-threat, responded 13. That wasn't my question. Who is he? Head fund manager who works in Paris, only one record in the police database. Neighbour called. As there was a lot of noise in the apartment one night, police investigated. They reported that the wife's arm appeared red. The husband reported to the police officer that they were in an argument, but wife never reported any wrongdoing. That is all I have. Let's grab a coffee, 13, said Peter. Besides, you need a rest, and I'm sure you have been walking all night. My battery power lasts many weeks. Yeah, let's have a coffee nonetheless. 13 walked into the cafe that the couple had entered and took a table behind them. Ensuring that he could see the wife, 13 ordered a coffee and asked the waiter to bring him the Sunday paper. Peter asked 13 to listen in on their conversation and translate it back. And now I'll leave it at that because we're going on date night, and then I'll continue, but won't be this scene. All right. That's the end of the chapter, but a few comments that I'll make. Paul Schickel from London had come up with the Cockney slang for Starbucks called Jimmy Tarbucks, and I thought it was brilliant. And we never evangelized it. Jimmy Tarbuck. It was either Jimmy Tarbuck or Jimmy Tarbucks. Was a British comedian. He might be gone by now. And I thought it was great. So I wanted to get that in the book. And Paul Schickel, if it ever gets out as Cockney slang, it's all on him from London. And I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else that... so a few notes there. I'm using names of people I know, but it doesn't mean that they are the character. For example, okay, it's a noisy coffee shop. So you want to say hi? What? You want to say hi?
Hi.
That's Finn. Okay, picking up from where I was when I was in front of the house. 13 ordered coffee and asked the waiter to bring him the Sunday paper. Peter asked 13 to listen in on their conversation and translate it back to him. Where will you go? Anywhere, said the woman. You will be homeless and destitute. You have no skills. You said you would not touch me again. Look at my eye. You did a terrible job of putting makeup over it. I did my best. I told you I did not want to leave the apartment. Enough. I don't want to hear any more. Peter stopped in the middle of the footpath, closed his eyes so he could get a full view of the woman's face. At this point, 13 was peering over his newspaper. The look on her face haunted Peter. A look of defeat mixed with despair and hopelessness. A woman trapped. Okay, stop your whining. We will go then, said the man. 13 left a few euros on the table and followed them out. The man walked to the other side of the car. As the woman was attempting to open her own door, 13 got ahead of her and opened it for her. She looked at him, and 13 smiled. Have a wonderful afternoon, madam, said 13. The woman, looking slightly embarrassed, got into the car, a new BMW, as 13 closed the door for her. The man looked at 13 with suspicion, realizing that he was not in a waiter's uniform. 13 closed the door behind her, and then a noise. The man looked over at 13. Oh, I am so sorry, monsieur. Your door handle appears to have fallen off in my hand. What the fuck? The man said as he raced around the car to face the agent. Again, sir, I am so sorry. The handle came off in my hand. Perhaps there is a recall from the manufacturer with this. If not, I will gladly pay you. Recall? This is a BMW, man. Why were you opening the door for her anyway? Well, monsieur, I noticed the lady was about to open her own door and I assumed you were too busy, so I opened it for her. The man looked at 13 with disgust. I realize BMW is the highest quality car, but sometimes one gets away. For example, your mirror looks loose. 13 grabbed the mirror, ripped it off the car, and showed it to the man. Before the woman could get out of the car, the man swung his fist at 13, who dropped the mirror immediately and caught the man's hand. The man fell to the ground in agony as Peter could hear the sound of cracking bones. You're breaking my hand, you fuck. 13 let go of his hand as the man cradled his mangled right hand with his left hand. The woman came to his aid, but he would have none of her consolation. After your hand heals, perhaps you could put it to better use, said 13 as he looked at the woman. Goodbye, madam. 13 turned and ran before the cafe staff came out to help the man. Good evening, 13, said Peter as he signed off. He got home, sat on the couch, and took a nap. Alright, that's the end of that. Next chapter, we're going to introduce a new guy from Chicago.